Welcome to Enrichment Today podcast, hosted by Dr. Amy Christine Blansett. This podcast covers topics to build stability and find tranquility in your life. Join us to discuss topics to improve your financial health, change your limiting beliefs, improve your wellness, and so much more, all to increase your self-sufficiency. If you like this podcast, make sure to follow the Enrichment Today podcast on Facebook and Instagram, and follow the Drew Lewis Foundation on Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, and Twitter. You can also check us out on our websites, enrichmenttoday.org and drewlewis.org. Now sit back, relax, and learn to break some crayons with us.
Hello, I'm Holly Melton, recovering financial advisor, coming to you from the Fairbanks at the Drew Lewis Foundation. And we are so fortunate today to have Lisa Langley with us from the League of Women Voters. The correct title is, let me get this, League of Women Voters, Southwest Missouri. And Lisa is here to really talk with us about the importance of getting registered to vote, what elections are coming up, and where you can go to vote, what you need to take with you. So completely nonpartisan conversation, just really good foundational information when it comes to your voting rights. I want to start by reading a couple of the topics that are on the League of Women Voters website. Their website is lwvswmo.org. Again, that's lwvswmo.org. And it starts with voter services. The League works to protect voting rights and challenges efforts to restrict access to the ballot box. We register voters, including our country's newest citizens, at naturalization ceremonies. We are proudly nonpartisan, never supporting or opposing candidates or political parties. Regarding citizen education, we present candidate forums, publish voters' guides, and offer Vote 411 for digital access to information on ballot issues and candidates. We believe the strongest voters are informed voters. Yes. And then regarding action and advocacy, we study legislation and government policies, then take action, meeting with city council members, speaking up at school board sessions, and lobbying representatives and senators. We're focused on making our communities stronger and encourage participation in government. So those particular topics really resonated with me, and I've had the good fortune of knowing Lisa for a couple of years now.
A couple, I think it's a little bit more than a couple.
Just a few.
Just a few.
And so I thought she would be a perfect individual to have come in and enlighten us about the importance of all things voter registration and some important dates to keep in mind for this coming year. So I would love to introduce to you Lisa Langley.
Thank you so much. It is so good to see you.
Yes.
Yeah, we haven't seen each other for a while, so this is great, and I love talking about this. So, yeah, we do a lot. And we do need to remind everybody that we are nonpartisan, so we never endorse candidates, but we do study issues, and we do that at a national level and a local level and a state level. So we can have 3 different studies going on at once about different issues. And if you go to our website, you can see our positions on different issues that we have studied in the past. So if anybody is interested in that information, that's on the website as well.
What do you mean by your positions on?
So, for instance, education. We have issues that we've studied. One of our local studies was on mental health and access in our community. And we did an extensive study. Oh gosh, it's probably now been about 6 or 7 years ago, maybe even longer than that. And a lot of great information and programs came from that, where we worked with a lot of different mental health providers in the community, even establishing a coalition of members to address some of the mental health issues that our community was experiencing. And so we looked at mental health issues with our law enforcement, health issues through education. So we love to pick an issue apart and study it and then take a position on it, and that's the foundation for when we do go and lobby our representatives, local representatives especially.
So how does that translate to being nonpartisan when you pick an issue?
Well, nonpartisan would be more, we never endorse candidates.
Okay.
So we don't take a Republican, Democrat, Independent, Libertarian. We would never take and support in that context.
Okay.
But issues, Medicaid expansion,
Okay.
we're very supportive of Medicaid expansion as it related to issues of poverty. So issues are not supposed to be so partisan.
Yeah.
Sometimes they are, but usually they are. But I mean, an issue is an issue that affects everyone in our community. So we really study it to see exactly who it affects, how it affects them, and then we take a stand with that issue, and that's how we lobby. But
that is so interesting. I appreciate that clarification because it would be so easy to just say, oh, I agree with everyone. Mm-hmm. Everybody has a voice, which they do. But the difference between supporting an issue and being nonpartisan, I appreciate that definition.
Right. So, but yeah, our voter services, you did refer to, we do a lot of voter registration drives. That's the foundation when someone decides they want to be part of the process and have a voice. That's the first thing you have to do is register to vote. So we do a lot of voter registration drives, and then our voter education. And I just want to briefly talk about our history. We're the League of Women Voters because we came from the suffrage movement. Mm-hmm. And women were finally won the fight to get the right to vote in 1920. So we just celebrated our 100th anniversary.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, 2 years ago. Mm-hmm. And I always clarify that was when white women got the right to vote. Women of color continued to fight for many more years until about 1965 with the Voting Rights Act. And so we have men that are members of the League, but we keep League of Women Voters to honor that fight. And it took over 72 years for women to finally get that right to vote. And so that's a fascinating history. And we actually have a couple of people in the League that can share that history if anybody is ever interested in that history. But so I always like to point that out, that's part of our history, that we did come from that suffrage movement to help women get the right to vote, like everybody else. Like the men.
We were talking a little bit beforehand, and I lived overseas for 3 years, and I had the opportunity to have that insight of what it's like to live in and around other governments. And maybe our government isn't perfect, but by gosh, we have a pretty good one. And the idea that we can vote, that is truly a blessing.
Yeah,
so.
Absolutely. And, the right to vote is extremely important to me. I have my vote necklace on today that my daughters bought for me as a gift. And it is such an important thing to do. And even I can't remember the last time I didn't vote in an election. And we talk a lot, especially recently, about the problems or people accusing different people that we have issues with voting. And I think the biggest issue that we have is that not enough people vote. That people don't exercise that right to vote on a regular basis. And, local elections, oh my gosh, those are so critical to me as an individual, my family, my community, so school board, city council, county commissioner, mayor, all of those have a direct impact on my daily life and my family's daily life. Yes, presidential election is important, but the decisions made at that level don't impact me on a daily as much as the local elections do.
I would agree with you. And even like my kids are no longer in the public schools, but any bond issues that we have come up that affect what we can give to our schools, it's so vital. And yet I hear so many people who say, well, I don't have kids in school anymore, so it doesn't affect me.
Right.
Totally affects your property taxes.
Your property value, absolutely. And we do have municipal elections happen in April, and we do have that election coming up April 5th. April 5th, and if you want to vote it's in Greene County or in Springfield, let's say, this time it is just school board. Okay. And so anyone who lives within the Springfield Public Schools boundaries can vote. So if you live in the city or the county, I live in the county, but I will have a ballot. I can vote for school board. And a lot of times people are confused by that. Yeah. But yes, everybody that lives in Springfield Public School District can vote for school board.
Even if they're out of the county?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah. Because I do want to cover the difference between what you can vote for in Springfield and the county, the difference. Because I know for me, I've been like, does that affect me? And even though I couldn't vote for the mayor, I live out of the city limits, it still has an effect.
Absolutely.
On me.
Yeah, absolutely. So if you want to vote in this April 5th election, you have to be registered by March 9th. Okay, so you have until March 9th to get registered. And then absentee voting, and I'm not sure when this is going to air, but February 22nd, which is today that we are recording this, but February 22nd, absentee voting opened for the April 5th election. So if you're going to be out of town or incapacitated that day, like if you have a medical procedure or something, you can go ahead and absentee vote.
What about our college kids that don't live in Springfield? Can they absentee vote?
Yes, if where they are registered. So for instance, if they're registered in, let's say, St. Louis County, but they attend college here, they will have to request an absentee ballot, which you can do online. And they will have, unless they want to go home, I guess, election day, but otherwise they will need to absentee vote.
I think our college kids, we really have to encourage them to vote. And some of them are really proactive about that, and some, like anybody, they run out of time or they don't think about it.
Yeah.
So the election that is coming up, for Springfield, you said it's school board, but are there other issues coming up on April 5th that we need to be aware of?
Not in Springfield. So if you live in Springfield and Springfield Public Schools area, there are no other issues. There are no city council elections this cycle. You're not going to be voting for mayor or county commission this time. But next year, next April, that will come back up. So.
And then, so to expand that, Greene County?
Yes, outlying areas. And I don't know for sure. The best way to investigate that is to go to the Greene County Clerk's website.
Okay, the Greene County Clerk's website.
And I have that. Hang on. Well, you just go to greenecountymo.gov.
greenecountymo.gov.
Yeah, and then that takes you to the Greene County Clerk's site. But I do believe there are other school board elections in the Greene County area, and Christian County and Webster County. So,
and then you mentioned getting registered to vote. So tell me about that process. Where do we go?
So if you're 17 and a half, and be 18 by the election, and U.S. citizen, a citizen of Missouri to register in Missouri, and you have not been convicted of a felony, but caveat here, if you have completed your parole and probation at this point, you can re-register. If you have been cleared and are off papers, I think is what they refer to that as, you can re-register to vote.
Okay, that's really helpful to know.
Yeah. And actually, we helped a gentleman. We have a great story of helping a gentleman who did not realize that. And he's our biggest advocate now. But so if you meet those requirements, there are several places in the community where you can go to register to vote. Schools can register you to vote. Usually the staff in the office, there's someone usually there. So I would call ahead to make sure someone there is qualified, but they can usually register you to vote. The best option is the library, Greene County Library. They have people on staff that are qualified to register you to vote. You can always go to the Greene County Clerk's office and register in person. And then motor vehicle, if you're getting your license renewed, that's a great place to register to vote too. And then be aware if you have moved since the last election. If you moved within Greene County, you can update your address the day of the election, but then what will happen if you aren't in that precinct still, if you've moved out of that precinct, they will send you to your correct precinct. Okay. So it's best to do that before the election. And quick thing to do, you just fill out a card to say that you've moved within Greene County. If you've moved from outside the county, then you're going to have to re-register as a new registrant in Greene County.
Thank you for listening to Enrichment Today, brought to you by the Drew Lewis Foundation. At the Drew Lewis Foundation, we educate, empower, and support underserved families through personalized programs and coaching to increase the quality of life and build resilient communities. If you like Enrichment Today, make sure to follow Enrichment Today and Drew Lewis Foundation on social media. And now, back to the show.
And then if you've changed your name, if you've gotten married or divorced, you want to re-register under your new name.
You'll have to bring proof of...
Yes. You can use... and all of this is found on the clerk's website, and the Secretary of State's website from Missouri. But a driver's license, a non-driver's license ID, a utility bill, a passport, a Missouri university or college or vote tech school ID will work. There are several different options that you can use to register to vote. So yeah, so you'll want to get registered by March 9th if you want to vote by April 5th. And then, go ahead.
I'm sorry, can you register online or it has to be in person?
You can register online. Yes, you can register online, and then the first time you vote, take one of those identification documents with you so that you can be verified that you are who you are, and you can vote. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, you can do it online. Yeah. Yeah, it's very, very easy. And I think part of the conversation of registering and voting is I talk to people sometimes, and it's people from all walks of life who are a little bit intimidated by the whole process, and that's unfortunate because everybody should have access. Everybody that is a qualified voter should have access and feel comfortable voting, and so that's really the premise of what the league does. We try to educate people so that they understand the process that registering and voting, we're very dedicated to lobbying and following legislation that's filed that hinders voting because as we talked before we started, we have very low voter turnout in this country. I mean, it's a problem. It is a problem that we don't have more people who exercise their right to vote. I mean, for us, that's the issue, that it's not everyone who qualifies is exercising that right to vote, and for a variety of reasons. And so we really try to educate voters, because you can register and be registered, but part of your responsibility is also being an informed voter. And so that's really where the league tries to step up. So we do that through, like you said, the voters' guides that we put out through a lot of different areas in Springfield, or a lot of different organizations. The library always has our voters' guides.
We'll have them here.
Yes, you all take them. A lot of businesses will take them. And then also we have the online digital Vote 411 that we use, so people can easily
Vote 411.
Vote 411. And then the other thing, and we, the past, since 2020, with the 2020 election, we organized a coalition of 11 nonpartisan organizations in Springfield, and we do candidate forums. And of course, COVID changed how we did those, so they are virtual at this point, and we are doing school board candidate interviews. And those will be ready, and KSMU is one of the coalition partners, KSMU Public Radio here locally, and they will air those interviews during the noon hour on March 21st. And so we will be interviewing each of the candidates, and so you can get a feel for who they are and what they stand for, and hopefully that will help you in the voting booth when you vote on April 5th. So,
can you have a P.O. box as an address, or do you have to have a physical address?
you have to put that's a good question. You have to put the address of where, but we do work with unsheltered individuals. So usually there is an address that they can use. Are you all an address that?
I don't know. Do you know? Are we an address that
It
unsheltered?
seems like you
That's a good question,
are.
and we may be able to put that in the show notes
it seems like you all might be one of the addresses that.
Amy would know for sure.
Yeah, there are organizations that allow their address to be used for unsheltered individuals who want to register to vote.
That is
So when we do voter registration, we do work with organizations and have registered unsheltered individuals.
So let me ask you another question that's been a little bit of a hot button, but I think it's a word not a lot of people understand. It gets thrown around a lot, but it's the word gerrymandering. So tell me how that affects voting rights and...
Wow, that's a whole nother
That's
topic.
probably very briefly, what does gerrymandering mean?
Oh my God!
So that when people hear that, they'll know that it's not just some made-up word, and it sounds kind of happy, but it's really not a happy thing.
Well, and I'm just going to be in my very
Nonpartisan way?
and also there are other individuals in the League of Women Voters that they really focus on that issue, and so they would be much better qualified and probably do a much better job of explaining it. But it's basically where lines are drawn are the lines that indicate our senators, our state senators, our state representatives, and our congressional districts. And so there are attempts to draw those lines to where the population within those boundaries always vote a certain way. So then you end up with one, and it is done across the country. There are gerrymandered districts that lean toward Democrats. There are gerrymandered districts that lean toward Republicans. So let's be clear, this is an issue across the spectrum. And so it basically makes sure that those districts the results are always a certain way.
Okay.
That's not healthy. The league believes that's not healthy for democracy.
Okay.
You need lots of voices at the table. You need to look at how the population, how many people of color are in an area, how many people, socioeconomic. There are so many things that we need to take into consideration because everybody's voice needs to be a part of the decisions.
Right.
And when gerrymandering occurs, that's really difficult. That's a difficult thing to achieve.
Right. It's so vital that every U.S. citizen, they need to vote, but in turn, they need to be heard. And that's what the ultimate goal is.
Right,
So.
right. And I do think that's maybe part of why we have low voter turnout, because people think, oh, my vote doesn't matter. Oh my goodness, yes it does. I mean, we had a local election in 2020 that I think it was determined by like 80 something votes. I'm going to say 81 or 87, I can't remember. And then the other aspect of that is in Christian County, there was an attempt to recall their mayor. And so when a recall is organized, they look at, you have to have, I believe it's 10% of the number of people that voted in the last election for mayor. I think there were only like 710 people who voted in that last election. So there only had to be 71 people that signed the petition to do a special election, which cost taxpayers quite a bit of money, to attempt to recall the mayor. 710 people voted. So 71 people. So small amounts of people are making huge decisions that affect us on a daily basis. And so your vote does matter. It matters.
A strong and powerful image when there's a huge population but only a small percentage votes. That's a very good perspective that small percentage of individuals is speaking on behalf of an enormous population and not speaking for everybody.
Right.
So that's a great way to put that.
Right. And he was not recalled. But again, the amount of money and energy that it took to do that special election, based on 71 people in that community saying, hey, we think this person needs to be recalled. And that, that was a very small amount of people that had a big voice.
So tell me some other important things that people need to know. Right now we're talking about February 22nd was the deadline. No, I'm sorry, it's when it opened up to absentee vote.
Absentee, yeah.
March 21st?
March 9th.
Excuse me.
March 9th is the last day to register to vote.
Okay, and that you can do at any school, library, Greene County clerk.
Yeah, Greene County clerk's office.
Okay.
And then the league does, like I said, we do voter registration drives at different places. We're at the farmers market. We go there during the summer. So we have them in a lot of different places. But if you can't find some place, the best place is Greene County clerk's office. And I would tell people also, when you register, after about 10 days, check and make sure that they have your registration and that it has been processed. Okay. Because sometimes if you go to like a school and the staff at the school does it or the library does it, there might be a little bit of a delay. So you want to make sure that the Greene County Clerk's Office gets that registration, gets it processed. So I would just follow up anywhere that you register, even with us, even with the league. I would follow up at about 10 days and make sure, and you can do that online through Greene County Clerk's Office for Secretary of State.
So April 5th is one election date to be aware of.
That's it. Yep.
And are there any others in Springfield or Greene County coming up this
Not
year?
at this time. There'll be a primary in August.
Okay.
And then another midterm election in November. So November will be a big election, another big election. So.
And what's up for voting in November then? Midterm elections?
Well, I mean, as of right now, we have a state senator election, so that will be on the ballot. We have a local congressional election that will be on the ballot. We will have state representatives on the ballot. So it's the midterm, basically. It's the election between the two presidential elections. So we had a presidential election in 2020, and we'll have another one in 2024. And so this is the midterm in 2022.
Okay. And the registration deadline for that is?
Well, you have to register. I'm gonna do my cheat sheet here. You have to register. I think it's 4 weeks. Basically, 4 weeks prior to the election date.
Okay.
You would have to be registered by then in order to vote in that election. But I say just go get registered right now.
Yeah.
Just
Yeah,
do
don't
it.
wait.
Don't wait. Just
Like
get
your
registered.
taxes, just do it.
Yeah, exactly. And then make sure if you move or you change your name that you update that registration. But just go ahead, get it done, and have that card in your wallet, and be proud and use it.
Yeah, and look for the booklets, and even online.
Yeah.
But the booklets, we're going to have some here. They'll be in a lot of different areas, public service areas that you can read. I do that every election. We get the pamphlet that explains what's going on, and it helps so much.
Mm-hmm.
It just really brings some clarity. And if you're still not clear, reach out to the candidate of your choice.
Absolutely.
Lisa made a great comment earlier. She tries to seek out opportunities to speak with candidates directly, and they are our public servants, so they're there to serve us. Contact their office and see if you can set up a coffee, maybe with a group of people, but they are there to have the conversations that are important. They're not in some ivory tower locked away that they can't speak to you.
They're not supposed to be.
Yeah.
At least they're not supposed to be. They are supposed to be.
They are supposed to be our public servant.
Right,
That's the
right.
name, right? This has been so incredibly helpful, and this is another one where we need to have part 2.
Well, maybe I'll bring in the person who knows gerrymandering and all of it.
Yeah, more specific
More
details.
specifics, yeah.
Is there anything that you can think of that anybody should need to know? We've got the April 5th school board election. We've got the midterm elections in November. So the earlier you register to vote, that's
Right.
the most important part.
Right.
And you can either register to vote online or at any of the different public offices we've talked about. Make sure that you have your ID, a government ID, and then perhaps a utility bill, something that verifies your address.
And all of that's on their websites as
Yeah.
well. So, no, just
vote.
Just vote. I mean, really, take it as something that is so special. And, a lot of people really, truly fought and died for your right to vote. And so, again, as a woman, just knowing the history of the suffrage movement and what came of that and the hardships that they went through, and they fought for over 72 years, I try not to miss an election. It's that important.
It's really an honor and a blessing that we get to
Absolutely.
have this right.
Absolutely.
And it's our right. It's also our privilege, but it's our responsibility.
Yeah.
So
Absolutely.
thank you so much.
It's been great.
Yeah,
I've
I
enjoyed
really
this.
appreciate this a
Yeah,
great
it's been
deal.
great to see you too.
Where else can we hear you?
Oh, Well, the League has a Making Democracy Work program that airs at basically 9:45 on Mondays on ksmu.org. And so if you miss it on Monday mornings, you can go to their website and hear it on their website. And then I'll be involved in the school board election, the candidate interviews. So you can hear me on March 21st during the noon hour on KSMU.
March 21st, the new hour on KSMU.
Yep. Yeah.
All right, awesome. Thank you, Lisa Langley.
Thank you.
We appreciate it. And I will be signing off now for the Drew Lewis Foundation. I'm Holly Melton and can't wait to talk to you next time. Have a great day.
Thank you for joining us on this episode of the Enrichment Today podcast. If you liked this episode, make sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel and follow us on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. And visit our websites enrichmenttoday.org and drewlewis.org. Until next time, remember to break some crayons.